right, welcome to Classroom Management for substitute teachers. And so I'm going to give you a little background about who I am. I've been teaching in the Department of Education for over 20 years now. I've had various positions within the Department of Education, from first grade all the way to 8th grade. And I've been an ESL coordinator, an academic coach, a ELA lead, and a mentor to new teachers. When you enter the Department of Education, you get a mentor teacher that will help you for 3 years. That's one benefit that you get working in public education. And so I've been that person, which is really fun. I am currently teaching in an elementary school right now in an inclusion classroom for 3rd grade. And I do have some classroom behaviors in there, just like any other typical classroom. And so I'm going to share with you some of my strategies that I use and a little bit of information on how to help you folks with substitute teaching. How many of you out of the 3 that I have right now are currently substitute teaching or working in a school? Okay, substituting, are you substituting? Subbing? I'm an EA. An EA in a school, and you're PTT with ESL, right? RTI? Yeah, RTI. Okay, great. All right. So in this workshop, we're going to be, the objectives for the workshop today is 1.1 is to define classroom management and the influence it has on student learning. Explore and discuss classroom management strategies. Okay, that's my task with you folks for the next 25 minutes. What I'd like you to do now is just in a small group, since we only have 3 of you, I'd like you to think about who was your best teacher you've ever had from kindergarten to college, and why were they the best, and what was one strategy that they used for classroom management? Okay, can I get you to come sit at maybe one table and have that maybe like a 3-minute discussion, and then we'll move forward. Thank you. So your favorite teacher?
And it's because the way he talked about Hawaiian studies. Yeah, and very down to earth and kind of really understood the students. Yeah, so I think one of the best things he did for us was trying to trip for our class to go to the mainland and attend a school up there for a few days and do a Maybe program up in California, Palo Alto area. So that was fun.
So he's going to be memorable forever.
Yes.
Taking you on a trip.
Yes.
Great.
What kind of management did he use? What kind of classroom management did he use?
Oh, he was. The nice thing about it was he wasn't strict in the terms of the yelling, the scary, the intimidating type. He was like there when you knew that when he spoke firmly with authority, but where we could respect him.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Good.
Hi, I'm Sandra. I'm trying to think, for this discussion, I'm going to say one of my best teachers was a teacher I had in Japan that taught us how to teach English as a second language. Mm-hmm. And he taught us all different, within one classroom, sometimes you have skill levels, mm-hmm. how to teach to the different skill levels, mm-hmm. when you don't have the luxury of having all the students at the same level. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one lesson and maybe different worksheets for each of the levels. Mm. I really appreciated it. Mm-hmm. And the way he taught was modeling how we're supposed to be teaching. Mm-hmm. So that really helped me a lot mm-hmm. in classroom teaching. Mm-hmm.
What were some of his classroom management styles?
Well, we're talking about adults, so he didn't have to really manage children, mm-hmm. Specifically classroom management. Have the different worksheets for the same lesson. So everyone felt included, even though this kid's worksheet was super simple with lots of pictures.
Right.
and then this person could probably teach the class themselves.
So a lot of differentiation going on. Yeah.
The level, it's the same topic.
Right,
It
right.
was just
Different
amazing.
levels.
So classroom management that way.
Right.
To be able to include all the students in the lesson instead of having to do breakouts or have an EA on the side helping with the PTT and go in the next room. Yeah. That was wonderful.
How about you, Coco?
I think that my favorite teacher was my 5th grade teacher because he took us outside of the classroom. And, you know, it's just 5th grade, you learn everything in it, but he took us out and he taught us the arts. So he would make us do plays and dramas. He even took us to his house for an overnight sleep. I don't think you can do that.
No.
And it was wonderful. I mean, he was the kindest man, and he took us outside of the classroom, which was wonderful. And so I'm really into these arts things where these performers come to our school and they teach the kids how to sing and dance, because I noticed that their classroom performance improves because there's self-confidence.
Yes.
And so I will always appreciate him because he made me feel, you know, give you the smallest part, but you feel really special.
Right.
And it's everyone together. But he was the kindest man, and I can still remember him being really kind in our class. And no one, I don't think anybody didn't like him because he was a really kind teacher.
So what I'm hearing from all three of you is building those teacher relationships, right? And being a substitute teacher, you're on a shorter time frame to build that, or working in the class. You're in a different kind of situation because you're with your kids all the time. But building the relationships with your students really does help with the management in your classroom, that you care. You know, tell me what's happening today, what's going on today, and get to know them. So a tip for those of you that are substitute teaching is, if you're on the campus and you've been in another classroom, you've done like a special class, PE computers, and you've noticed that this Johnny is in your classroom for the day, make those connections with them, you know. And maybe that person was a difficult person in that computer class or the other. So you have a little background knowledge already when they step in the door of tricks to kind of pull out of how to handle those behaviors. So we're going to move on with our next part of our PowerPoint. My clicker is not working, so I'm going back and forth over here for that. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. So what is classroom management? Classroom management is the routines and strategies that are put into place to maintain order and structure so that active instruction can take place and students are engaged in learning. Okay, that's our ultimate environment. That's what we want to be able to create for active learning, right? So something to consider. We know that if a child doesn't know how to read, we teach them. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach them. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, we try to teach, right? Why can't we finish the last sentences automatically as we do the others, though? What gets in the roadblock? What gets in the way of the behaviors? What's happening?
Different, and they learn differently.
They do learn differently, right? Good. So I'm going to offer you some strategies on that today. So most often behaviors are happening in the classroom because the skills might be too high for them, the levels that they're needing to learn. Maybe they've not been taught the specific routines and procedures prior to doing that assignment. So those are things to keep in mind as you start to present the curriculum from the substitute teacher. A good tip is to go in earlier, like you probably heard from the other breakout sessions, is you need to get to class early so you can look over those lesson plans, look to see, is this a first concept for them? What can you pull out of your bag of tricks to help them understand that concept? So that's really important. If you're finding that it's not working, there's things you're going to need to do to take a step back, that they're not understanding the content. Okay, so talking about effective and ineffective corrections and commands. One thing that I had heard earlier was the way that you do speak to your students. Something that I share with my students every time at the beginning of the year is, I will not yell at you. I'm not your parent. I'm not your mom or dad. I'm your teacher. So I'm firm. I do have a voice that you can hear. It's not a loud voice, but I do make sure that I'm able to be heard. When I give effective commands, I use minimal numbers of words. So I'll give you an example on the next page. They're clear, concrete, and specific. Give reasonable amount of time for the behavior to occur. So don't give 30 seconds, I expect you to do this. Give it a reasonable amount of time for that behavior to occur. Make sure they're not too wordy. Make sure they're not too vague. Don't give them a lecture for 5 minutes the whole class. If it's one person not behaving, don't bring that whole class into it. Address it to that specific student, okay? You may be upset. They may have just got you to that level. Take a breath back, right? Take a step back and make sure that when you go to have that conversation with them, that you're on that level of showing that you can maintain what you need to talk to them about. Make sure that you're not giving too many sets of directions. If you stepped into my classroom, which is an inclusion classroom right now, and if you gave a multiple 5-step thing for kids to do, they're going to be lost. So be careful with what you're asking for them to do. Another strategy I want to share over here that I have on the board that you can take a snapshot if you'd like later on is a technique that I learned from some workshops that I've attended. It's called MAPS. So what you have on your board is just the MAPS part, but this is what it stands for. So M stands for materials they need for the assignment. So you would ask the students, what are the materials we need to be able to get our task done today? So if it was guided reading, they would need their guided reading book, they would need their reader's notebook, pencils, whatever materials they need, and you list that up on the board. Attitude is always the same. I say to my students, I can do it. It's a positive attitude. So they all repeat after me, I can do it. Placement, where are they going to be working? What is the lesson entitled having them work on? Is it at their desk, on the floor, in learning groups? Are they pair sharing? So where are they going to be working? And speech. For the learning to occur, what kind of speech are you looking for? So when I give this directions to my students, I will ask boys and girls, show me what kind of speech are we going to have today with this activity, and they just put up fingers. They don't even raise their hand, they put up fingers. Because I've taught this previously for them. So if you're coming in as a substitute teacher, you can teach this at the beginning of the day to your students. You can say, we're going to use this format, this graphic organizer, to help get through our day today. I'm going to put it up on the board, and we're going to refer back to it as we need to. So a number one, I have them put their finger up, and I say that's a no talking voice. So that's when the teacher's giving instructions, when you're listening to your peers speak about whatever they're talking about, if it's writing or reading or math. And number two is a whisper voice. So I have them put 2 fingers up, and I have them put it next to their throat, not pushed hard, and say their name. If it's vibrating, they're talking too loud, like mine's vibrating right now because I'm talking too loud. A 3 is a blended. So I have them put 3 fingers up, and I say that's a blended voice. You're going to match the voice of your neighbors, with your peers at the table. And a 4, I say throw it out the door. We are not having an outdoor voice in our class today, okay? So we go over that. That's my expectations before I send them off to do an assignment. So if they weren't listening to, or somebody wasn't quite sure what they needed, it's up here. If it's an assignment with a book they're reading in Wonders, I have the page assignment up here. So they know to refer back to that, and they know where that direction is, okay? That's just one of my good tips that works really well in my classroom. So an effective command would be, if you've got a student that's off task, you're going to go up to that student, you're going to say, pick up your chair, sit down, draw a picture of your favorite animal. What you want to avoid is giving them questions. When you start to give kids questions, what are they going to answer back with you? They're going to come right back at you, right? So if you say, didn't I tell you already to pick up your pencil? Didn't I tell you how many times have I told you to get on task? They're going to come right back at you with an answer. By giving them a command, they don't have anything to say back, right? You say it short and sweet, you say it to them, you walk away. Another thing that I have established in my classroom is a place called Refocus. So we have a specific table towards the back of my room that's called my Refocus table. We do lots of activities at that Refocus table. There's learning going on throughout the day, a lot of, it's not just a bad place to kind of go. But when a student is off task, you're giving instructions in your room, you can't seem to grab their interest, they're bothering so-and-so next to them, you've already given positive reinforcement, you've already come over and said, Coco, great job, doing a lot of really good work today because you want to stay positive. They're still giving you a difficult time. I'm going to use you as an example, Coco. You basically you're teaching, and you come over and you pick up the things that are in front of them, and you just move it, and you don't say anything, and you move it back to that table, and you just say, and you just keep on teaching. Because what they want to do is they want to pull your attention away from you right then and there. And you need to not get into that game, that struggle with them, okay? So that's one thing that I do with them. I also talk to them, as a substitute teacher, you can talk about this at the beginning of the day. boys and girls, we have this table here. This is a place we can go. Also, if you're feeling you just want a little bit quieter area, there's no reason why you can't head over to that area, kind of thing. So it's not always a negative thing, okay? So strategies for gaining the compliance of minor behaviors. So if you got minor behaviors going on, you're going to, like I said earlier, you're going to make a request using a statement, not a question. Describe the behavior you're looking for. So I'm looking for you to listen, behave, get on task today. I've got maps on the board. I'm looking that you can do it. You've got your materials. Here's who you're working with, your learning team. Here's the expectations I expect today. And then you walk away, okay? You're going to avoid the nagging. The minute you start nagging and you go up and you say, I told you to do this. How many times have I told you to do this? You know, you're just not getting on task today. What's going to happen with your kids? They shut down. You lose them. You've embarrassed them. Or they're going to challenge you back, right? Avoid the multiple requests. Look them in the eyes when you're talking with them. You know, we do have different cultural things with our children, you know, depending on their cultural background, but try to get their eye contact. Be careful of your environment, but get your eye contact and get on their level. You know, sit down at the table, having a hard time. We're going to sit and kind of chat about this today, right? Get on their level. Because the minute you're up here and they're down here, you've got their attention. They're ready to go, right? So think about those strategies. Okay, any questions? Anything you'd like to add to this point? You're good?
I have a look that
Tell me your look.
I
Tell me your look.
like, okay, like, that's, you know, and it's kind of like they know that I'm not fooling with you anymore.
Yes.
And you know, it fixes it. I have to just go,
Yes. And Coco, that's a really good point because we all have that teacher look, right? You kind of, you get it. You craft it after a while. You get that look down like they're like, I'm not messing with Miss Jackson
And, you know,
today.
because I guess they're kindergarten and first graders that I work with, I lie to them. I tell them. Because when I'm writing and I hear this chatter and no one knows I'm looking at it. I know who, and they're like, and I have eyes on the back
Yes.
of my head.
Yes.
I'm watching you all the time. You have eyes, let me see. No, it's a
Yes.
secret.
Yes.
And they wonder how you know that you're
Yes.
not behaving.
Yes.
That's just like,
And that's another good point, is you want to make sure you're not teaching from a chair. You know, you are in the role of being a facilitator, so you are moving around and you're constantly moving. And if a person in the back of the room is misbehaving and you're in the front of the room, don't shout out at the person in the back of the room. When you get the chance, you're going to walk back there and you're going to, like I'm doing with you guys. He's probably having a really hard time videotaping me right now because I don't stay still. I move a lot. And make sure you're moving. Get to the proximity of the kids who are not behaving, and you can just stand gently right next to them and direct your instruction over here. And they usually will just start to straighten up right away because they know you're there, right? And if it's something they're playing with and that comes up on another slide, take away the distractions, right? If it's a pencil box, a flask water bottle, because our kids in Hawaii need to drink lots of water and that thing's hit the floor 20 times already, take the flask bottle, move it somewhere else for them. So take away those distractions. Okay, so the next thing I have is effective strategies for handling problem behavior. So reteach it, the expectations. If you didn't do a real good job the first time, bring them back together. Things that I use in my classroom are just quick little call outs like 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. They automatically stop. 1 is to stop, 2 is to start to look, and 3 is to really focus. I do quick little things like that. Another one I do is if you can hear me clap once, if you can hear me clap twice. Those are strategies that I use. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. They didn't get it. It's not you as a teacher. They didn't get it. You got to bring them back in, go back over your maps, go back over the criteria and what you're expecting. Change your seats. Look at your classroom. Immediately as the kids sit down, look and see where your open seats are. Where could you move a student? Where could you put them? Move the desk, right? If you need to, move the desk off to their own spot. Conference with them, talk with them. When you got that chance, right before a recess, grab them and say, let's have a little talk. We're having a hard day today. Let's figure out how can we get you back on task. So have that conversation with them. Don't do it with the whole group, but conference with them. Yes. Yes. Provide choices. We're having a difficult time with this expectation right now. Let's look at this over here and chunk it. You know, maybe you're going to take that writing assignment, you're going to fold that paper in half and say, let's chunk it, let's work on this part right now. When you're done, let's flip it over and work on the other half. For some kids, it's very overwhelming when you see a big assignment. So you've got to think about, what can I do to chunk it to get this child to be successful for today, okay? Remove the items from the class, like I stated earlier, if they're having a difficult time with holding onto that pencil box, water bottle. You know, we're learning about world maps in my classroom. I had a teacher bring in a globe. The kids were very excited when they came in the classroom that morning to look at the globe, spin it, but then it became a distraction. So I took the globe and I said, okay, when we do social studies, I'll bring the globe back out. And so I put the globe into the cabinet. You know, nowadays everything's digital. The kids don't see globes so much in classrooms. You know, it's maps, and so the globe's like, wow, check it out. It can spin. It can do all this cool stuff, right? So think about that. Wait time after making a request. So you ask for them to do something, give them the wait time. Honor that wait time. Give them some time to think about it. Silence is an okay thing. Okay, so if it's quiet, you're waiting for a response, give them the wait time to respond. Have some humor. I think this is what my kids would say about me and my classroom is, we have fun, you know, and we make learning fun. We do get down to business and get the work done, but there is times we're having fun in the classroom, so have some humor with what you're doing, okay? I'm just gonna roll through this whole thing. Can you hear my stomach growling? I'm like hungry. Okay. So having a well-polished set of behavior management skills and strategies is essential for success in your classroom. So don't assume they know what to do. Don't assume they wrote this down on the lesson plan, you guys should know how to do this, you've already done it before. Don't assume that. Ask them, tell me, how many times have you done this assignment, this kind of learning before? Get a little background knowledge so that you can change things around if you need to, okay? Focus on what you want the students to do opposed to not do. So what are the things you really want them to be able to do for the day? Like I listed my objectives. Can you come in the classroom, put up the agenda, and put the objectives? Before recess today, this is what we're going to do before recess. As we do it, we're going to check it off. Okay, when we come back after recess, here's our expectations. Let's check it off. Okay, so set those parameters. Establish, teach, monitor, and review a small number of positive stated expectations. So it's that positive reinforcement that you're going to keep giving them. Don't get into a power struggle. You've lost them. The whole class is centering in. They're going to leave the day and go, wow, that substitute couldn't do their job today, or that teacher couldn't do their job today. So don't get into that power struggle. Stay calm, quiet, right, with them. Even though you're losing it, stay calm with the kids because they'll know, they'll feel it off of you. If you want them to do something, use statements and not questions, what we discussed earlier. A little tidbit to bring you back a little bit to the morning. When you enter the classroom for the day, you're going to make sure you have your name up on the board and all that good stuff, but don't just open your door and let the kids filter in. Greet them at the door. Make sure they're on task before they ever come in your classroom, and if they're not, take them back outside. Do it again. You know, or bring in the ones that are ready. The ones that are not ready, have them stay outside. Because the minute they come in, you've already lost that control of the classroom. If they come in ruly and just crazy, it's gone. So you've got to kind of reestablish those routines, and if the teacher doesn't have them, then you're going to start a few. Other things you can do is just, you've been in other classroom substitute teaching or have seen other teachers do it, take snapshots of their rules. List them up on the board. If the teacher doesn't have rules in the classroom, list up some of the rules. Boys and girls, what are rules that we should have in our classroom today to help us be successful? Let them come up with the rules. I do a lot of that. It's all about the kids coming up with the criteria. When we do assignment, I say, what would an ME look like for this assignment today? What do we want? What are the expectations for this assignment? And I let them come up with rubrics on their own. You can do that. What are our expectations? If they're working in a learning group, you can give them a Post-it note and say, you're going to give your group a grade today. Here's the expectations for that grade. That grade's going to go down, and I'm going to make sure that your teacher knows that this is what your learning group was doing and working on today. And it's a way for you to keep notes as you're substitute teaching. Hey, table 1, excellent. I got this little Post-it note. They did a really good job in this activity, and it helps you when you go to fill out that report. Okay? So always remember that you're following the permanent teacher's classroom procedures and expectations. Like I stated before, if there isn't any, then you're going to post some of your own. Make sure you have all their attention before you get started. When you go in the room and you do your preview of what the expectations are for the day, if there's a time the kids are not getting it and you have to step back a little bit from those lesson plans and readjust and give them a mini lesson and things like that, don't feel the need that you got to get from point A to point Z within that day. You know, you try your best to get there however you need to, but if they're not getting it, stop and take the time to go back and make sure they're getting it. Write it in your lesson plans. You know, we spent a little bit more time on this. We didn't quite get to this part. And honestly, me as a teacher, when I write my lesson plans, I fluff it a lot. There's a lot of extra things in there, and I always tell the teacher in my lesson plans, if you don't get to it, I'm perfectly fine with it, to help with the downtime, right? And if you go to a class where there isn't enough detailed instructions, then you got to pull out of your teacher bag. So you need to come with your substitute bag. So in there you should have a read aloud book. You should have maybe some art activities, or if there's something real quick that you can do with them. A real easy one is flashcards. So if you're doing lower elementary, that would be addition and subtraction flashcards. Upper elementary, multiplication, division. You can do games with them with that in the classroom to fill in that time. You're still challenging them in learning. So you need to have a few bags of tricks in there. There's some free sites on the internet that you can use. There's wonderful Pinterest, right? Pinterest has a lot of good ideas. I'm not expecting you to come in with all this, but it's good to have it for your own sake, because the downtime often is when it starts to happen in the classroom, when you've got that downtime. So you got to make sure you're filling your time and the kids are being challenged in there, okay? All righty. And those are my references for the slideshow. With that, I'm just going to open it up for any questions and you folks might have. I've shared about my experiences and the tricks and tools of what I use for classroom management. I do tend to get the harder kids. They come to me. I like them. I like the challenge of flipping them. For me, that's a lot of fun. How am I going to get these kids to work? How am I going to get them to get that knowledge that they need to move on to the next grade level? So for me, even though I'm pulling my hair out at night, and it's different every year. Taught 20 years, every year is different. This year is different than when I first started teaching. Honestly, you pull out different things each time. Same for you guys with substitute teaching. You go from one class to the next. It's different. It's never going to be the same, right? Thank you for coming, and if you have questions, I'm here to help answer anything. If you folks have any questions, or I can offer you some more tips on anything. There is a handout. There's a handout that I offered too that I'm not sure if you folks got it. Yeah. Things like playing music. So if you bring your phone and you have appropriate music on there, you can plug it in. You know, orchestra, symphony, those kind of things are really fun when the kids are doing art. It helps set the tone in your classroom, right? Things like that. Thank you.